If you look back at older generations, there's something many people notice right away. A lot of older adults from decades ago seem to age differently. They did not always look younger in the modern cosmetic sense, but many of them seemed sturdier, simpler, and more grounded in the way they lived. They ate different foods, they moved differently. They had routines that felt slower, more regular, and less chaotic. And even though life was harder in many ways, the daily habits around food and living often supported the body in a more natural rhythm. That is what we are talking about today. This video is not about pretending the past was perfect. It is not about saying every older person decades ago was healthier than every older person today. That would be too simple, and real life is always more complicated than that. But there is a reason so many people look at older generations and ask, why did they seem to age better? The answer may have a lot to do with what they ate, how often they cooked, how they lived, and how little their everyday food environment was dominated by packaged convenience. And for seniors today, that matters. Because healthy aging is not just about genetics, it is not just about luck. It is also about what you repeat every day, the food you eat regularly, the way you build meals, the kinds of ingredients you rely on, the way you move, the rhythm of your day. These things add up more than most people realize. So in this video, we are going back in time a little bit, not to romanticize the old days, but to learn something useful from them. We are going to look at what older generations did differently, what changed in modern life, and what seniors today can still borrow from the past to support healthier aging. And one of the best things about this conversation is that it does not require a complicated diet plan. It does not require expensive supplements. It does not require fear or confusion. It starts with the basics, real food, simple habits, and a better understanding of what the body actually needs as it gets older. Let us begin. For much of the past, older adults did not think in terms of nutrition hacks or superfood trends. Those ideas are very modern. What they had instead was something more ordinary, but often more powerful: routine. Meals happened at regular times. Ingredients were familiar. Food was usually prepared at home. And people ate what was available, seasonal, and practical. That may not sound exciting, but it mattered. When meals are built around simple ingredients, the body often gets a more stable supply of nutrients. When food is cooked at home more often, it is easier to control salt, sugar, fat, and portion size. When people eat fewer packaged snacks and fewer ultra-processed meals, they are less likely to overload the body with ingredients that do not really nourish it. Older generations often lived in a world where home cooking was normal. A meal was more likely to come from a pot, a pan, a garden, a market, or a family kitchen than from a box, a drive-thru, or a delivery app. Breakfast might be oats, eggs, fruit, or bread with something simple. Lunch might be soup, beans, rice, vegetables, or leftovers from the day before. Dinner was often a home meal with basic ingredients, not a highly engineered product made to taste irresistible and keep you eating. And because food was more central to home life, people often ate more deliberately. They sat down, they waited for meals. They did not constantly graze from one snack to another the way many people do today. That rhythm matters because the body tends to function better when it has a pattern it can rely on. Now compare that with modern life. Today, food is everywhere all the time. You can eat without really cooking. You can eat without really thinking. You can order food in minutes, buy ready-made meals, or snack throughout the day with almost no effort. Convenience has made life easier, but it has also made eating more confusing. The issue is not convenience itself. The issue is that convenience often replaces quality, and for seniors, that can be a problem. As people age, the body often becomes more sensitive to what it receives. Appetite can change. Digestion can slow down. Energy may not bounce back the way it once did. Muscles need more attention. Hydration matters more. Nutrient needs become more important, not less. So when a senior relies too much on highly processed food, the body may not get what it needs to stay strong and steady. That is why this topic matters so much. A person may look at older generations and think the difference is only lifestyle, but food is a major part of the story. The patterns that existed before modern packaged culture often gave older adults a better nutritional foundation. They might not have had today's science vocabulary, but they often had the kind of food habits that supported daily life. Let us talk about some of those habits one by one. First, home cooking was more common. This is one of the biggest differences between older generations and today. Home cooking does more than simply save money. It changes the quality of what is eaten. When meals are prepared at home, there is usually more room for vegetables, more room for whole ingredients, and more control over what goes into the food. Even simple meals become more nourishing because they are built from the ground up. A home-cooked bowl of soup with beans, vegetables, and maybe a little meat or fish is very different from a heavily processed frozen dinner. Both may fill you up, but they do not affect the body in the same way. One is usually built from real ingredients. The other often contains additives, excess sodium, and more refined components than most people need. Older generations often made foods that were not fancy, but they were real. Stews, porridges, boiled vegetables, rice dishes, grains, legumes, and traditional recipes were common. These meals were often simple, but they gave the body fiber, protein, minerals, and more consistent nutrition. Second, the food itself was less processed. That matters more than people realize. Ultra-processed foods are designed to be convenient, tasty, and long-lasting, but they are not always designed for health. Many packaged foods are high in sodium, added sugars, refined starches, and oils that do not do much for the body. When a diet leans too heavily in that direction, it becomes easier to overeat and harder to get enough nutrients. Older generations may not have eaten clean in the modern social media sense, But they often ate less industrial food, meals had fewer ingredients, foods came from farms, gardens, markets, and kitchens. A tomato was a tomato. A bean dish was a bean dish, a meal was a meal, there was less manipulation and less artificial layering of flavor. That simplicity can be very valuable for seniors today. Third, meals were often more regular. A regular eating pattern helps many older adults. The body tends to like rhythm. Breakfast, lunch, and dinner at predictable times can be easier on digestion and energy than random eating all day long. Older generations were more likely to live with this kind of structure. They had routines around meals, and in many families, those routines were tied to daily life. Today, many people skip meals, eat late, snack constantly, or eat when they are not really hungry. Seniors may do this too, especially if they live alone or if cooking feels tiring. But irregular eating can make it harder to maintain energy and steady nutrition. It can also make it easier to choose quick, less healthy foods when hunger suddenly gets intense. Fourth, people move more naturally. This is not strictly a food issue, but it is part of the same picture. Older generations often had more physical movement built into the day. They walked more, stood more, cooked more, cleaned more, and did more manual tasks. Even if they did not call it exercise, their bodies were often getting more use in everyday life. That matters because nutrition and movement work together. The body processes food differently when it is active. Muscles need fuel. Digestion responds to routine. Appetite and energy become more stable when movement is part of the day. Modern life has made it easier to sit for long periods, and that shift affects how the body ages. Now let us look at the foods that older generations often relied on, because this is where your channel can really shine. One of the best examples is tomatoes. Tomatoes are a simple food, but they open the door to an important lesson. Many people assume one version is better than another, but the truth is more useful than that. Raw tomatoes and cooked tomatoes both have value, but they serve slightly different purposes. Raw tomatoes are fresh, juicy, and a good source of vitamin C. They are great in salads, sandwiches, or sliced with other foods. They can add brightness and hydration to meals. Cooked tomatoes, on the other hand, can be especially helpful because cooking breaks down the tomato cell walls and makes lycopene more available to the body. Lycopene is one of the tomato's important compounds, and cooking often makes it easier to absorb. That means tomato sauce, stewed tomatoes, tomato soup, and other cooked forms can be very useful too. So the lesson is not raw good, cook bad, or cook good, raw bad. The lesson is that both can fit into a healthy senior diet. This is exactly the kind of practical food wisdom that older adults can use without becoming overly obsessed with rules. Another strong example is beans and lentils. Older generations often use legumes more often than many people do now. Beans are affordable, filling, and rich in fiber and plant protein. They support digestion, help build a satisfying meal, and can be used in soup stews, rice dishes, and vegetable meals. For seniors, beans are especially useful because they are soft, versatile, and easy to combine with other foods. Lentils are similar. They cook relatively quickly, which makes them practical for home meals. They can be used in soups, mixed with vegetables, or served as a side dish. They are one of the simplest examples of a food that is old-fashioned in the best sense. Practical, nourishing, and easy to use. Then there are leafy greens. Many older traditional diets included greens in cooked form. Spinach, collards, kale, cabbage, chard, and other leafy vegetables often appeared in meals because they were accessible and useful. These foods are packed with vitamins and minerals that matter as people age. They also add color and variety to meals, which is a very simple but important way to improve nutrition. A lot of people think the best senior meals have to be fancy. They do not. Often, they just need to contain the right categories of food: vegetables, protein, fiber, and enough water. Greens help with that. They are one of the quiet heroes of healthy aging. Oats and whole grains are another example. For many older adults, breakfast was not a protein bar or a flavored coffee drink. It was something simple and filling. Oats, porridge, bread, or other grains were a common way to begin the day. These foods can be valuable because they provide steady energy and pair well with fruit, yogurt, eggs, or nuts. A bowl of oats with fruit is still one of the easiest senior-friendly meals you can make. It is warm, simple, easy to chew, and easy to customize. It does not need to be complicated to be useful. Eggs are another traditional food that still belongs in the conversation. Eggs are practical, affordable, and versatile. They can be boiled, scrambled, poached, or added to meals. For seniors, they are especially valuable because they provide protein in a form that is easy to prepare and often easy to eat. Many older adults struggle to get enough protein, and eggs can help close that gap. Yogurt is also worth mentioning. Plain yogurt can be a simple way to add protein and, depending on the type, beneficial bacteria to the diet. It can be eaten on its own, mixed with fruit, or added to breakfast. For seniors who want soft, easy foods, yogurt is a strong option. Fish, especially simple preparations of fish, were also common in many older eating patterns. Fish provides protein and other important nutrients, and it can be easier to digest than some heavier meat dishes. Traditional meals often relied on whatever was available locally, which meant fish was often eaten in simple, not overly processed ways. Fruit, too, was often a regular part of the diet, not candy-shaped fruit snacks. Real fruit, apples, oranges, berries, bananas, pears, and seasonal fruit were often eaten as simple, whole foods. Fruit gives fiber, hydration, natural sweetness, and important nutrients. For seniors, fruit can be a much better way to satisfy a sweet craving than reaching for packaged dessert or ultra-processed snacks. Now let us talk about what changed, because this is where the past and present really meet. One major shift is that food became more industrial. As food systems changed, more people began eating items that were easy to store, easy to transport, and easy to eat quickly. That sounds practical, and sometimes it is. But the downside is that many of these foods are less nutrient dense. They may fill the stomach without giving the body what it needs. They may also push people toward overeating because they are formulated to taste good and keep you reaching for more. A second shift is that people cook less. This is huge. When cooking disappears, people lose control over their meals. They also lose a chance to build meals around vegetables, protein, and basic ingredients. Cooking does not need to be complicated. Even a simple meal prepared at home can beat a highly processed one if the ingredients are better. A third shift is that people move less. That means the body is often getting less natural support from everyday activity. The more sedentary life becomes, the more important food quality becomes. A body that moves less still needs nourishment, but it may be less forgiving when the food is poor. A fourth shift is that meals became more distracted. Many people today eat while watching TV, scrolling on phones, rushing between tasks, or sitting in front of a screen. That makes it easier to lose track of portion sizes and hunger signals. Older generations often ate with more focus, even if they did not think about it consciously. That focus can help people recognize when they are full and enjoy food more intentionally. So what should seniors take from all this? Not guilt, not fear, not a list of impossible rules. The real lesson is that simple habits still work. If you are a senior, or if you are creating content for seniors, the message should be practical. Eat more whole foods, choose more home-cooked meals. Keep tomatoes in the rotation both raw and cooked. Add beans, lentils, oats, greens, yogurt, eggs, fruit, and simple soups. Pay attention to how packaged foods affect your energy and appetite. Try to build meals around ingredients your body can actually use. This is where your channel can become very powerful, because you are not just making another generic health page. You are speaking to a real audience with a real need. Many seniors do not need complicated theories. They need clear guidance that feels respectful, realistic, and useful. And if you want the voice of your channel to stand out, it should sound like this: calm, wise, thoughtful, and grounded. Not pushy, not dramatic for the sake of clicks, just helpful, because that style builds trust. Now let us make this even more practical with a sample senior meal pattern. For breakfast, a senior might have oats with fruit and a bit of yogurt. That gives fiber, energy, and softness. For lunch, they might have soup with beans, vegetables, and maybe some bread or rice. That gives protein, fiber, and warmth. For dinner, they might have cooked tomatoes with fish, greens, or simple grain. That makes use of both the tomato lesson and the value of a balanced plate. As a snack, fruit, yogurt, nuts, or a simple smoothie could work well. None of that is flashy. But that is the point. The healthiest habits are often not the most dramatic ones. They are the ones people can repeat. And repetition is what creates results over time. That is also why comparing the past to the present is such a good storytelling angle for your channel. It gives viewers something emotional to connect with. It reminds them of grandparents, family meals, and simpler times. It creates a bridge between memory and practical advice, and it gives your content a different flavor from the usual top 10 foods or avoid these 5 food style of video. If you use this correctly, your channel can feel more like a mini documentary series than just another health tips page. That is a strong position. A viewer should feel from the first minute that this channel is not just repeating generic wellness advice. It is bringing back useful food wisdom in a way that seniors can actually use. That is the identity you want. Now, before we close, let us bring it all together. Older generations may have seemed to age better because many of them lived with simpler food patterns, fewer processed products, more home cooking, more routine, and more natural movement. They ate real food more often. They relied on familiar ingredients. They did not always call it healthy aging, but many of their habits supported it. Today, seniors can learn from that. They do not need to live exactly as people did decades ago. The world has changed, and that is okay. But they can still return to the core ideas that matter most: real food, simple meals, more vegetables, better protein, and fewer ultra-processed products. Tomatoes are a perfect example of this principle. Raw tomatoes are useful. Cooked tomatoes are useful. Packaged, overly processed tomato products are not the same thing. The lesson is not just about tomatoes. It is about learning how to choose foods that work with the body, not against it. Beans, oats, greens, fruit, eggs, yogurt, fish, and simple home-cooked meals all belong in that same story. They are not trendy. They are not flashy. But they are often exactly what older adults need, and that is the heart of Ageless Bites. Food is not just fuel, food is information, food is habit. Food is memory. Food is one of the most powerful tools seniors have for aging well. So if you are watching this and thinking, maybe I should start making better food choices, start small, pick one meal, pick one habit, pick one food. Replace one packaged item with a simpler one, cook one more meal at home this week, add one fruit, add one vegetable, add one bowl of oats. Add one serving of beans, add one cooked tomato dish. You do not need to change everything at once, you just need to begin. Because healthy aging is built one meal at a time. And sometimes the old ways still teach the best lessons. Healthy aging does not have to be complicated. Sometimes the simplest habits are the ones that last the longest.